You folks'll have to wait a few minutes while Francis' old man gets his Stanley steamer a-going.
Blow off the engine next.
Well, I have to tell you about the time my father, I guess this was long about 1913, he had this Stanley steamer. And he wanted to go to from Manchester to Brattleboro, Vermont, that is, and he decided he'd go over Peru Mountain. And he got started on the road. Things was going pretty good, you know, he had his dust on.
He just got out of the way in time.
The road was kind of rutty. But still, he was going along pretty good, you know, and he got up the top of Peru Mountain. And something kind of went wrong, you know. He found himself on this smaller road, and then it got to be a smaller road than that one, and all of a sudden he hove up in this fellow's barnyard. And that's where the road ended. Well, he was kind of disturbed some, you know. And he waited and kind of sat there, you know, and thought hopefully that something would happen. And this fella come out of the barn, and my father, he said to this fella, I guess I'm a little bit mixed up here. Could you tell me how to get to the road to Brattleboro, Vermont? And the fella said, well, now you just, if you just, if you'll just turn your car around, if you'll only just, Jesus Christ, you could get there, for I could tell you.
Franny, that reminds me of the first time I ever came to Vermont. I was hunting for Zeke Taylor. Now, Zeke was a fellow that I hadn't ever met, but someone had told me about old Zeke. And I got up here, and they told me to go up to what's the name of this place up here? Middlesex. Now, we didn't have any of those down south, but we got into Middlesex up here, you know. And so I turned off the road down there in Middlesex, and I went up through the hills. And when I got up there, well, I asked him, I told him, I said, you know, I'm hunting for Zeke Taylor. Do you know where he is? And this fellow was standing out there in the front of the yard, and he says, no. He says, I don't know where he is. So I said, well, thank you. And I drove off down the road, and I looked back through the mirror in my car, and he was out in the middle of the road a-hooping and a-hollering, a-shouting and a-pawing the dirt. And so I decided, well, maybe I'd better back up and go back and see what this feller wants. So I waved to him, stopped, waved, and said, I'll be back, sort of indicated that, you know. And I drove on down the road a couple of miles and found a place to turn around. You can't find many places to turn around up here because the hills are too high and the mud's too deep. And there are too many cows in the road. But I finally found myself a place to turn around. I turned around and went back down there. And when I got back down to where he was, you know, he says, I went over and he said, I asked my brother Bill, says he doesn't know where Zeke lives either.
You know, about time Walden Foster decided they'd better go down to a big city. They hadn't been in many places, you know, and they decided they'd go to a big city. And God, they went to Boston, Massachusetts, that is. And they got on the steam cars at Barton Landing, you know, and things went along pretty good. And then they seen this fella coming through. He was selling fruit, you know. He had this big basket of fruit, and they'd neither one of them seemed to have ever ate one of them bananas. They decided, God, it was time they did. So they both paid their 10-cent pieces out, you know, and they bought one of them bananas, each of them. And things was fine, and Walter, he was the first one to figure out, you know, how to peel that damn thing. God, he got it all peeled. He got the thing peeled, and just as he got that peeled, and he took a great big chunk out of that thing, you know, took a good big mouthful of it, that train went into a tunnel.
Oh, God.
Well, sir,
Well, Doc's pocket.
oh, Doc's pocket, yeah. Well, sir, he looked over to Walter, and he said, Walter, have you ate any of your banana yet? Walter said, no, I ain't. Why? I said, well, by God, don't you do it. I just ate some of mine and I went stone blind. I went stone blind.
Oh, God. Old Henry and Hattie Aiken, you know. Hattie, she had this damn idea. She'd go down in the morning, the stove would be kind of stone cold, and, well, the wood was always wet, one thing and another. And Henry come down one morning, there she was with the kerosene can, hauled the potato off the spout of it,
Oh, God.
and turned it right into the stove.
Oh,
Henry says, God, he says, don't you do that. Don't you touch a match that. It will blow us right out of here. Well, she says, I've been starting the stove this way every morning now for 20 years, and I'm going to do it again. She scratched the match, tossed it in there, and, wow, it was a hell of a bang, and the whole side of the house went right out. They ended out in the hen yard, and they were just picking themselves up, and Hattie says to Henry, she says, Henry, you know, this is the first time you and I have been away from home together in 25 years.
oh, God. I've never heard anything like that in my life. Well, you know, I keep thinking about Walter and Phoebe. Of course, they're both dead now, you know, poor souls. You know that Junie that they had there, that first boy they had? You know, Junie. You know, he went along for 6 years and he hadn't said a word. He hadn't said a single word. And, you know, Walter and Phoebe, they was getting kind of worried about it. They'd begun to figure that he was kind of feeble in the head, you know. Well, they were kind of scat, but one morning Phoebe, she got up, you know, and she made a batch of pancakes, and she fried them up awful good, you know. Everybody sat down to the breakfast table, and little Junie come in, you know, 6 years old, hadn't said a word in his life, and he sat down and began to eat them things. All of a sudden, he looked up at his mother, he spoke right out.
Is that so?
He said, Ma, there ain't enough salt in these pancakes. Well, sir, I'm here to tell you, mister, that Phoebe just about dropped her girdle. She said, why, Junie Boy, why ain't you never spoke before? And Junie said, well, I'll tell you, Ma, there wasn't no call to speak before. Up to now, everything's been going along just peachy.
Yeah, we dropped in on Edna one time, and I come in the door and sat in the kitchen, and I see she had some oven door was open, and there was biscuits sitting in there, keeping warm, and there was a pot of beans on the back of the stove. And so I says, Edna, I see you've been doing some baking. She said, no, she says, I ain't been doing none of that baking. That's Bessie brought me them beans and them biscuits, but you know, nothing I like better than them home-baked beans, but I ain't been able to eat a single one of them beans. I says, that's all. She says, yes, she says, I don't know, it's them nerves in my throat. Well, I says, what do you mean, Edna? Well, she says, you know, there's nothing I like better than home-baked beans, but every time I get a spoonful of them beans up close to my mouth, it's them nerves in my throat, and they commence to jump, and I lose my suction. Oh, bravo.
Well, you know, I'm thinking about that time Walter had to go down to St. Johnsbury. Speaking of holding back, makes me think of it. Walter, he had to go down to St. Johnsbury, and, you know, he looked around town. He tried to find some of them young fellows to take care of his pig for him while he was away. Well, didn't have no luck, you know. And it come along about the day before he was supposed to go. He had to stay there for 3 days. He had business down there. He had, you know, he was trying to sell a piece of property or something. Well, just about the day he was supposed to go, Foster was sitting up there on the store steps, and he seen Walter come trudging up with his suitcase. And he got up there and he sat down, and Foster said, "Well, Walter, looks like you found somebody to take care of your pig, didn't you?" And Walter said, "No, by God, I didn't find anybody to take care of my pig. But I'll tell you what I did. I set enough food out to last that pig for 3 days, providing that pig is prudent."
I was visiting down Cherryfield early one spring and went right by old Walt Robinson's house. And Walt was sitting out on his front porch in the rocker there. Kind of bundled up some, but he looked pretty good. And I figured I'd stop by and say hello. So I pulled up and got out the machine and went over and sat on the porch steps. And I said, "How you doing, Walt?" He says, "Well," he says, "not too good." I says, "You look like you wintered pretty good." "Well," he says, "no," he says, "I ain't wintered so good this year. As a matter of fact, I've been doctoring all winter." Well, I looked him over some, and he was quite peaked, but didn't look too bad. I told him so. "Well," he says, "I don't know, I've been doctoring all winter. Matter of fact, well, I've been sitting here on just this morning on the front porch here. I've been doing some ciphering and figuring, and I calculated if I just passed away last November, would have saved me $34.90.
You know,
I dare say you're going to tell us a caca about now.
well, I couldn't say that, but you know, the trouble with the world today is there's too many people in it and not enough folks.
I know it. I know it. Yes, sir. And all them folks there are, by God, they have all the taste in the mouth.
Yeah.
Most of them have all the taste in the mouth. Most of them folks, you know, are pretty small potatoes, and God sakes, they're few in the hill. They're few in the hill.
I know, it's a wicked time to be living.
It certainly is.
It's so dangerous just to be safe around here now.
I know it's dangerous to be safe. There you go.
Dangerous just to be safe.
Dangerous just to be safe, you know. God, most of these folks are running nights. Most of the time, running nights, you know.
Running nights?
Oh, God, yes. You want to make something that one, do you?
No. I've been running nights till I'm all run out. Last night I run with the boys on the fire team all the way to Morrisville looking for a fire. Smelt smoke, but we couldn't find nothing burning. So we went into one of them hot spots and had us a glass of beer. And we heard Trudy sing.
My mother was a lady like yours you will allow, and you may have a sister who needs protection. No, I've come to this great city in search of a brother dear, and you wouldn't dare insult me, sir, if Jack were only here. She was only a bird in a gilded cage, a pitiful sight to see. You may think she's happy and free from care. She's not, though she seems to be. It is sad when you think of her wasted life, for youth cannot mate with age, and her beauty was sold for an old man's gold. She's a bird in a gilded cage.
May 9, 1919, dear Peter. Well, Peter, how are all you folks? We stay well up here. Mother had an awful fall in November, but otherwise she has wintered well. The boy went out to California last August, where he took a wife. Aside from that, he seems well, too. I was to the Mary Fletcher Hospital this spring, named in memory of Mary Fletcher, where they suspected a condition of the lower bowel. My food distressed me some. As the doc says, anybody can't be too careful at my age. The result is I'm taking some small green pills anywhere from 1/2 to 3/4 of an hour before meal times, depending. They seem to be doing the trick. Mother has had to travel a good deal between here and Grafton to help out with Grandma G. She's been having trouble breathing, poor old soul. She's off kind of thin now. Time was you didn't have to shake the sheets to find her. Judge Hoyt broke his left hip off his back stoop. I won't mention his condition before he took his tumble. What you don't know won't bother you none. I believe you met him up here once. Sandy complected. On the whole, a good winter, but all glad to see spring and the ice go. As I think I mentioned before, I took up painting some times back. Pictures, that is. I have one, two, going right now that might turn out all right. But it's awful nervous work. One false move, and there goes your ball game. We would like you to come up and see us when you can, both of you, that is. They say by way of Pinkerton Notch is very sightly. Not that I've been there myself. Knowing you, Peter, I'm sure I don't know where you'd light out from. Knowing you. Well, come up when you can. I got some real cockers for you. Your friend, Francis Colburn. P.S. Saw Delbert at Grange. Wanted to be remembered to you. He's took off weight. Needed to. F.C.
June 4, 1919. Dear Francis, glad to hear the little green pills have loosened up your lower bowel. An old she-bear loosened up mine last evening. I went out to do my chores, set my lantern down by the pig pen, and then I went up in the loft to pitch down some hay. When I come down, the lantern was gone and the pig too. Well, sir, first I figured 'twas one of Junior's tricks. I was just about to call him when I heard a snort. You wouldn't believe it, Francis, but when I looked out the door to see what 'twas, there was an old she-bear, weighed 600 pound or such matter, taking off across the interval. She had my pig under one arm and was holding the lantern with the other. Well, sir, I had my thutta standing by the door, and I drew a bead on the old critter. Could make her out nice against that lantern. But just as I was about to pull the trigger, the old she-bear blew out the light. Well, first thing this morning I went over to West Tewksbury to borrow his bear trap. He weren't to home, but I hunted round for a while, and then I went up overhead in his stable to see if it might be there. Couldn't find hiding a hair of it, but I did see an odd-looking thing amongst some of them utensils he has. Pulled it out, and it was a morning glory horn from an old talking machine. Dug down further and come across the machine, too. 'Twas an Edison home phonograph, just like the one Aunt Minnie had. When we was kids, we would go to her house, set it in the middle of the floor, turn on the music, and the girls would dance around it. We boys would pretend we was announcers, giving the name of the record. Sometimes we would try it talking through the horn. So I tried it once more on this one. Do you think I sound real? Mrs. Hoss Prince wants to do some announcing too. You hear him? The Whistler and His Dog by the Edison Military Band. Edison Record. So long, me and Prince.
June June 30, 1919, dear Peter. Well, Peter, how are all you folks? We continue well, give or take, few items. Sorry to hear about your teeth. I presume you was wise to let the doc yank 'em. Old Doc Blake over the bottom told me once the wisest thing anybody can do is to get his store teeth early in life. Well, Peter, yours have come late. Anyways, good chewing to you. From now on, that is. Mother has had awful good luck with her teeth. She's got as nice a mouthful of teeth as anybody'd like to see in all her own. As far as that goes, mine are my own, too. I finished paying for them 2 years ago, July 10th. Well, seriously, Peter, you're going to be a good deal happier this summer when you come to eating corn off the cob. As I figure it, your teeth will be pretty well seated by then. But since you're new to this game, I can tell you 1-2 things. You'd best be damn careful about chewy sweets. Also, watch nuts. If one don't get you from the top, by George the other does from the bottom. In the beginning they'll seem like so much hardware in the mouth, but it's just a matter of letting the gooms adjust. Anyways, Peter, good chewing. Guess I've already said that once. I don't believe I ever told you about the time Eldon Baker lost his teeth. You met him up here once, tall and thin, with a sort of a tick in his cheek. Left cheek, that is. Well, Peter, he'd just barely got his teeth, and they hadn't seated good at the time. Well, I had to go and see him on school board business one night, and him and me was sitting around in his kitchen, and all of a sudden it come over him to spit. And he done it into the kitchen stove, as anybody does. Well, by Godfrey, Peter, everything given his plates flew right out into the fire. Now, I don't know what they make false teeth out of these days. I figure 2/3 paraffin, because Eldon's teeth went up in flame like it was the 4th of July. He'd just finished paying for them, too. Been saving up way ahead. He's awful independent and don't care to be beholden to nobody. Well, sir, I got to laughing so I had to leave, and Eldon hasn't barely spoke to me since. I presume he spits into the coal hod these days, or has give up tobacco altogether. Mother's been reading over my shoulder. She wants I should take out about her teeth. Well, I told her no. I said nobody'd ought to be ashamed of the God's honest truth. I said she did have a nice mouthful of teeth, and she said, well, Francis, putting up with you for going on 42 years, I've had a stomach full, too. She was only joshing, you know her. Oh, well, keep her smiling, I always say. Come up when you can. Your friend, Francis Colburn. P.S. Mother says to tell Jen the piccalilli turned out all right. She says less sugar might have helped. But thanks for the recipe anyways. Mother got rid of hers at Old Home Day, mostly to the summer folks. We ate part of 1 jar, she says to say. Come up when you can. F.C.
July 4, 1919. Dear Francis, you was right about my teeth. Them and my gums just don't team up yet. I feel like I had West Tewksbury's bear trap in my mouth, drag and all. All I can do is sit. But West come over and traded me his Edison home phonograph for an old headstone. I don't know as I told you, but his dad is ailing. Now I don't mind sitting, 'cause I can listen to the music. It keeps my mind off what I have to contend with. Next to Reuben Haskins' talking records, this is my favorite.
Banjo Solo Hot Stuff Patrol, played by Vessel Osman, Edison Records. Thank you.